And so for that, I'm going to take you to remote config and A/B testing. Remote config is just a way to dynamically update the values in your game without having to push new builds. So none of this will be limited by CrazyGames' platform. This is all happening within the SDK. And you can see here I have a whole bunch of config set up trying to determine every major system in game. And in particular, for this case, I have mechanics. A really cool thing you can do with remote configs as well is there's a few different types. I'll touch on that in a minute. But your config value can be defined within JSON. So you can see here I have all these different values attached to the mechanics key, whether it's steering sensitivity, push acceleration, the amount of dead zone, things like that. And so obviously what I could do is I could go in, I could just change this value right here and now, update it, and it will push that into the live build immediately. But that might be a little reckless. I would probably want to run a split test on that before I did that, which is also very easy to do. So what I would do in that case is I would come in and I would go create A/B test, give it a little name, little ID, start date, end date if I want to. Next, I'd go into filter. I would filter by anything I want to in here, build version, maybe a specific country, determine how many of my new users are going into that split test. I would then outline my groups. So the very first group will always be control and it will always be default, which is just the game as it is today. The game as it is today. Any key that you, I wanted to mention the game as it is today and as it's defined by remote config. So everything in here is going to be your control group. What you then want to do is just input your key, so something like mechanics, and then you would input your new value, and you would keep adding groups in terms of wanting to experiment with different variations of your mechanics values to test. One piece of advice when it comes to A/B testing, if you have relatively low traffic volumes, for statistical significance, you need a lot of users engaged with the buckets with each group to produce the most valuable data. And if you're working with smaller groups or over longer periods of time, I'd recommend that you make big changes and split test those. Right, really, really small changes are going to be hard to puncture through the noise on when it comes to A/B testing on small user groups. So once you've done that, you set up your goals. So naturally you'd want to look at a lot of template metrics, like we've been talking about sessions. So that's going to be a pretty important one: session length, number of sessions, day one retention. But you can also look at the impact on a custom event itself. So in particular, if I wanted to look at spin 180s, maybe I want to see less spin 180s perform. So I want to track the count of spin 180s. And then once it comes into reporting, I'd want to see less of those performed, potentially. Once that's all set up, I'll just show you what the reporting looks like and give you a bit of a spoiler, because I did run the steering sensitivity split test. I ran it at 50% more steering sensitivity and 50% less steering sensitivity, and the control group was actually the winner, which was unfortunate. So why was it happening? Well, it wasn't necessarily just the steering sensitivity. So I didn't have a how can I improve it sort of success, but I know what does not improve it, and steering sensitivity was sadly not the solution to that problem. I'd have to go into other hypotheses to try to figure out what that is.